Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Berkeley County Board of Education for Tuesday, September 24th. I'll call the meeting to order and declare that a quorum is present and that the media has been notified. Do I have a motion and a second for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Mr. Wright has made a motion to approve the agenda. Dr. Etheridge has seconded that motion. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Please join me in tonight's opening prayer to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up is agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes of regular meeting September 10th, 2013. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the September 10th regular meeting?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Mr. Wright has made a motion to approve the minutes. Dr. Etheridge has seconded that motion. All of those in favor of approving the minutes from the regular meeting of September 10th, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. The minutes from the regular meeting of September 10th, 2013 have been approved. Moving to agenda item number 5, entitled Approval of August 2013 Head Start Budgets and Reports. Do I have a motion and a second for approval of the August 2013 Head Start Budgets and Reports?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion to approve the August 2013 Head Start Budget Report, Credit Card Expenditure Report, Revised Calendar for Clay Hill Elementary and Harleyville Elementary, and the new hire, and review the Policy Council Agenda, August Policy Council Minutes, the Head Start Monthly Program Report, September menus, August CACFP reimbursement summary, Policy Council poll results, approval letter from the Office of Head Start for the delayed start for Head Start programs at Clay Hill Elementary and Harleyville Elementary, update on the Head Start programs at Clay Hill Elementary and Harleyville Elementary, and the program information report.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Marino has made a motion to approve the August 2013 Head Start Budgets and Reports. That motion has been approved by Mr. Wright. Do we have any discussion this evening regarding the motion?
I have a question.
Please, Ms. Lee, go ahead.
If we have a negative balance on, I'm looking at the detailed account inquiry by account under August detailed report. If we have a negative balance, where are we pulling that money from? On an item, and let me give some examples because I know that sounds very vague. On page number 9 of the report, we have a negative balance on one of the accounts for $9,103.30 for contracted services, and then everything on page 8 is a negative balance as well, and that totals $3,366.37. Is it just an accounting error that we're looking at, maybe a different account?
Well, thank you, Ms. Lee. We're going to get you an answer. Yes.
I'll ask Dr. Whitley, can you assist with that question?
Absolutely. We're still working on putting the correct amounts in the correct accounts, and so we're working with Ms. Ware on that.
Okay.
The money is there, it's just not in the appropriate place.
Okay.
And we have to submit just like a voucher, we get reimbursed from the Head Start funds, and we haven't actually received them yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The motion was made by Mr. Marino, seconded by Mr. Wright. All those in favor of approving the August 2013 Head Start budgets and reports as outlined in Agenda Item 5, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Agenda Item number 6, Legacy Builders.
Good evening, Dr. Murray, Dr. Thompson, and members of the board. In your packet tonight, you should have received a Legacy Builders update, and they were available at the front as folks were coming in. We thought we would just highlight, because Day of Caring was just recently here in Berkeley County and throughout the Tri-County area with Trident United Way, all of the ways that our community is reaching out and caring for our students. On Friday, September 13th, the Day of Caring was held throughout the Tri-County by Trident United Way as part of their ongoing annual program, as part of the first Day of Caring, if you will, or Day 1 of 365 Days of Caring. We had partnerships from Santee Cooper, LS3P, the Navy Nuclear Power Training Command Center, as well as many other companies and individuals who came out to volunteer. That's just a very small sampling. On your second page, another way that folks have been caring very generously for our students in St. Stephen, Associate Professor of Medicine from MUSC, Dr. Don Courtney, and his wife Becky donated over $5,000 in new instruments to our students at St. Stephen for their music, band, and art program. That was an extremely generous gift, of which we are very thankful. On page 4, you'll notice that we have students helping students. Our Stratford Knights have reached out and been working with our College Park Elementary students just across the road there to make sure that students are greeted before class, they're opening doors, meeting the students, and offering them a cheery good morning as they come into school. It is a very big deal for our littlest learners to be greeted by the Stratford Knights football team, as you can imagine. Those big guys are heroes in the eyes of our little guys. And then on the very last page, just one that kind of ties our science, mathematics, and technology into cooperative learning and how we share and work together. Our fourth graders in Miss Dewar's Boulder Bluff Elementary class excuse me, had the opportunity to use spaghetti, marshmallows, and tape to create an integrated lesson to build a bridge, if you will, to show how science, math, and cooperative learning goes together. And it's just one of the many creative ways in our classrooms that we're using science and math to help students understand the relevance, rigor, and relationship of what they're learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kovach. We appreciate your information through Legacy Builders. Next up on the agenda is Agenda Item number 7, Citizen Comments. In order to conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, we ask that you honor the following guidelines. Stakeholder comments are welcomed and encouraged. However, the board will not take immediate action on public comments at this meeting. Any person wishing to address the board must register prior to the meeting. Comments must be regarding programs, policies, or procedures. Comments regarding an employee or student other than the child of the speaker will not be heard in public session. Groups addressing the same topic should select one speaker. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The board chair reserves the right to allot additional time or halt public comments that do not adhere to the guidelines. We only have one citizen's comment this evening, board. It's from Mr. Jeff Ruhr. Mr. Ruhr, if you would please approach the podium. Mr. Ruhr would like to speak about the Common Core seminar he attended over the weekend. Mr. Ruhr, the podium is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Murray and board members. I did have the opportunity to attend a Common Core seminar in Columbia at the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center this weekend. It was an all-day event. Several of the board members were invited, but the notice was short, and I apologize for that. I thought maybe the lure of a free lunch would get some of you to go, but I understand why you couldn't make it. Anyway, I would like to tell you about some of the speakers we had at this seminar. You probably heard of Jane Robbins. Back in April, the Goose Creek 912 presented you with a video of her on Common Core, and she was one of our speakers. She's with the American Principal Project. We had Dr. Beeman Warman. He's with the Hoover Institute, and he did the analysis on Common Core mathematics standards for the Pioneer Institute and the state of California. Also, one of the outstanding speakers was Sandra Strosky with the University of Arkansas, and she served on the Common Core Standards Validation Committee, and she refused to sign off on the standards because they weren't adequate. We had Jane Pullman with the Heartland Institute, Whitney Neal with Freedom Works out of Washington, D.C., Senator Larry Grooms, who's sponsoring a bill coming up at the beginning of the session in January, S-300, to stop Common Core. He has 4 co-sponsors. Any of you that want to put a pause on Common Core, I would suggest you contact your senator and ask them to be a co-sponsor on his bill. Also, finally, we had Senator Tim Scott, who is an advocate against stopping Common Core, was one of our speakers. Since none of you were able to make it, they are coming out with a DVD of the entire seminar. It'll be available in a week or so. And myself and the Goose Creek 912 want to make it available to all of you at no cost, because there's a lot of new information. I've been working with Common Core since November 2010, and I'm still learning stuff. And I think you owe it to yourselves and to our students and the community to be as informed on Common Core as you possibly can be. Dr. O'Gorman is doing a great job on implementing the standards and doing what he needs to do, but there's a whole lot more to Common Core that I think that if you don't know about it, you need to learn. So if after this meeting, or y'all know how to get in touch with me anyway, let me know, and I will provide you with the DVDs as soon as they're available. Please convey that to the 2 board members that aren't here tonight. This also includes the staff or principals or teachers that are here tonight. If they want a DVD, get a hold of me. Give me the contact information, and we will provide them. This is great information. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Ruhr. We appreciate you being with us this evening. Moving on to agenda item number 8, financial services. We have an item for action this evening. Mr. Thomas, the podium is yours. Board, we are being asked to consider IFB number 398, entitled Shingle Replacement Bid.
And this is not the type that you need to see a doctor for. We are asking approval for IFB 398, and this is to have a list of contractors for shingle roof replacements. So just a list of people that we can call on in case we need some shingles replaced, or those sorts of things. I ask for your approval of bid 398 to awarded to Quinby Construction, CMS Roofing, and Reliable Roofing.
All right, do I have a motion and a second for agenda item number 8?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to approve IFB
Correct.
398, contractors for shingle roof replacements to Quinby Construction, CMS Roofing, and Reliable Roofing and Repair, as presented by Mr. Thomas in agenda item 8.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Etheridge. Ms. Lee has made the motion. I'll repeat it for everyone's consideration, and we have received a second to that motion from Dr. Etheridge. Ms. Lee has made the motion to approve IFB 398, contractors for shingle roof replacements to Quinby Construction, CMS Roofing, and Reliable Roofing and Repair, as presented by Mr. Thomas in agenda item number 8. Do I have any questions or discussion regarding agenda item 8? Hearing no discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving agenda item 8, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Mr. Thomas, the motion carries unanimously. Your item for action, IFB number 398, has been approved. Dr. O'Gorman, we now come to agenda item number 9, under instruction and accountability. You have an item for information for the board this evening entitled Instructional Focus Areas 1 and 2. Dr. O'Gorman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Thompson asked me to sort of zoom in on instructional focus areas 1 and 2 for our current school year. So we'll go through the other instructional areas later on, but tonight we're just going to kind of zoom into detail of what these 2 areas are. So the first is to support teachers as they transition to adopted standards by providing an easily accessible research-based curriculum. And so in this first piece, I want to talk about how we have hoped to make this curriculum both research-based and accessible for teachers. And again, our whole goal is to support teachers as we go into this. Just want to point out, this was a quote from one of our teachers, if you will, about the Common Core, Kevin Baird, who's one of the gurus in the U.S. about Common Core. They are the single largest enterprise-wide initiative ever undertaken in American K-12 schools. So that's larger than IDEA, the Secondary Education Act, things of that nature. So it's a large initiative. So we wanted to get as much resources out there for teachers as we possibly could. The second, infuse technology into the curriculum to encourage collaboration, communication, and effective use of software to enhance student learning. Of course, that's our purpose. So our new curriculum is online and available for teachers right now. So there's a link that teachers can go to and actually look at that, and I'll show you some snapshots of what that looks like. And we also have a link where teachers provide ongoing feedback. So there's a form where teachers can go and give us feedback on how those instructional units are going. So last year you heard us talk a lot about the writing of this curriculum. Major components are the unit plan organizer, which is an overview of how the standards are organized, essential questions, things of that nature. Performance tasks, so really taking what students are doing beyond just multiple choice kinds of assessments, actually taking a hold of something and making it real life kind of situations. And then pre and post assessments that go along with each unit. Okay, so this is a snapshot of a unit plan organizer. This is grade 4, unit 2. And for each one, you've got the subject, you've got an essential question, so this kind of ties to the whole unit, what is going on in that particular unit. And the pacing gives you how long that particular, particular unit will last. And then the big ideas. And so the essential questions and the big ideas really give a nice summary of what all the standards are supposed to address. So you've got the priority standards in bold, and then you've got the supporting standards that fall underneath. So that's kind of that scaffolding of the support standards to go along with the priority standards. So teachers already have access to the standards right in front of them for this particular 9 weeks. They don't have to go digging through a standards book to find that. They have an understanding of those essential questions for each one of those. So here's a performance task. And again, this is to give students an experience with mastering that standard. What does this standard look like in true practice? Well above and beyond a simple multiple choice kinds of tests. And it gives teachers a good idea of where students are performing on specific standards. And for each unit, there are a number of performance tasks. You see there's task 1, 2, and 3. And these are all leveled based on the Bloom's taxonomy. So this one is easier than this one, which is easier than this one. So it really gives the teacher an opportunity to teach over and over again to make sure that kids are mastering here, and then she can take them up to the next level, so on and so forth. And this gives them a good bit of feedback about where students are in terms of performance. And so this is actually a post assessment. So there's a pre and a post, and so this is a passage student would have to read and then summarize based on the passage they read, the standards at the top, so the teacher has a good understanding of this. And the great thing about the pre and post assessments is that teachers have access to exemplar assessment items before they actually start teaching the lesson. In the past, teachers may have just started teaching through the textbook or teaching the standard and not knowing what that assessment item might not look like on end of course or HSAP or PASS. This really gives them a good understanding of what this item will look like when Smarter Balance finally arrives. It gives them that taste ahead of time, if you will. I think this is just the second page to that. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. So that is a rubric. So teachers are provided with a rubric that helps them. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button here. Helps them actually grade that or provide a grade or an evaluation of that writing piece. So with all the pre and post assessments, if it's a writing piece, there's a rubric to help them understand how to score that. We've provided a variety of ways in which teachers can provide feedback. We've got professional development sessions. We've got spotlight sessions, which are voluntary, where content coordinators are going out and doing training. We're constantly asking for feedback, what's working, what's not. We're out in schools doing visits. That's principals, that's me and members of my staff. We're asking questions of teachers, how's it going, what's working, what's not. We've provided specific forms for teachers to use in their professional learning communities, where we ask for specific information from them to help us adjust these units as they're working through them. And here's just a snapshot of what that form looks like. So they can actually go online and do this. And we've asked them to either provide it to their API or their instructional coach to bring back to us so that we can go through it. And so what we try to do is cross-reference all the information that we're getting back from all these avenues, if you will, so that we've got a big picture of the feedback that we're getting. So it's not just from one particular school or one particular grade level. We're looking at the holistic feedback that we're getting so that we can change the units accordingly. So the standard, or going back to this focus area, we're supporting teachers in that research-based curriculum, but also evaluating and aligning professional development services based on that. So the feedback that we're getting, in addition to the feedback that we're getting from teachers during PD, helps us change and monitor what we're doing in terms of providing professional development for teachers. I mentioned the spotlight sessions before. That's a good example. I'll use Christy Furrow as an example. She's our K2 elementary ELA coordinator. She gets feedback from this, and when she goes out and does her spotlight sessions after school where teachers can come, she's tailoring that PD based on feedback that we've gotten from these units. Summer sale, we got some feedback. We've got early release, of course. All the ones in green are ways we get feedback from teachers. We've started using Edmodo. We're still very young in that endeavor, as a way to have district-wide blogs about what's working and what's not. So if you've got some of our small schools like Cross or Timberland, you might only have one teacher that's teaching a specific area. We try to provide ways through Edmodo that they can connect with teachers across the district teaching the same subject in the same grade level if they happen to be the only one in their building doing that. And it's a way for them to kind of troubleshoot where they might have a question with the curriculum in and of itself. And of course, we collect school leadership team agendas and minutes this year. Schools can actually fill those out and submit them online as well. So my department is getting those, and we're starting to weed through those now. Okay, the second focus area that we'll talk about tonight is to infuse technology in the curriculum. Talk about collaboration, communication, effective use of software, hardware, and I just mentioned Edmodo as a way to do that. So Edmodo is sort of a Facebook for the classroom, much safer in terms of privacy, if you will. Edmodo was designed specifically for schools and school districts, so public does not have access like they would on Facebook to what's going on in the classroom. But the teacher is completely in charge of what is on Facebook. She can ask for assignments. Students can submit assignments. They can write papers, upload them. She can grade them, send them back, so on and so forth. And of course, we are, in addition to this strategy for communicating and collaboration, we have our one-to-one computing initiative that I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail in just a second. Okay, so Berkeley on Edmodo. This is a user slide that shows how many teachers, students, and parents are actually using Edmodo to date. So we have 1,520 teachers using it, 7,325 students, and 422 parents. This is kind of a neat graph showing the use of Edmodo. So this shows the teachers, each one of these little teeny tiny dots is a teachers connected within clusters, so each cluster, each color is a school across the district. So you can see how teachers are reaching out to other schools in the district. So this is really a visual of how teachers are talking school to school using Edmodo, or students to students. Last year, you saw that some teachers were already using Edmodo before we did a district-wide training during summer sale. And after we provided training during summer sale, you see that it's jumped tremendously for this school year. So that's something to look for in the classroom as you're going out and you want to see what students are actually doing in terms of using technology, Edmodo should be right up front. And they can do that on their iPad, or they can do that on a desktop or a laptop or anything of that nature. This is a 3-year plan, and folks, we threw this in. Our video wasn't going to work for us, so I've thrown in some other stuff. We'll get you an updated copy of this. So this is sort of a 3-year plan for our one-to-one computing initiative. This year what we are doing is providing a foundational awareness of devices and increasing accessibility. We've got some software programs out there like A+, just to give you one example, where we've got computer labs where students have accessed A+ in the past. And so with the use of iPads or the Dell tablets out in the schools, they can actually access that program most of the time through the iPad. And so, in other words, we've got software out there that we want them to use it more often, and so the iPads are allowing us to do that. And so we want to do, and this is all professional development down here, we want to do a lot of foundational professional development to get to the point where we're actually evaluating the use of technology in the classroom. And I'm going to show you a rubric for that in just a second, which is here. The SAMR model, I think you've seen this before. What we don't want to do with technology is substitution. We don't want a dictionary to be replaced by an online dictionary. That's straight substitution. We really want technology to be something very different, a redefinition of what's happening in the classroom. And this is a great example. So technology allows creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. And here's an example: create a narrated Google Earth guided tour and share this online. So that's not something you could do with technology in the past with just a desktop or something of that nature. So we want teachers to get to this level by the time that we're finally done in year 3. Here are our most popular apps in the district. Evernote, if you don't have Evernote or you've never used it, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to take notes and share notes. You can insert pictures, videos, things of that nature. It can track where you are if you want to. If you're in a meeting right now and that's on your calendar, you can go to Evernote and start taking notes, and it automatically files it for you by date and by title. Teachers use this for students to write papers, to submit papers and things of that nature. This app, I'm sorry, my pointer makes me advance. This app is like a miniature, it's like a miniature smartboard on the interface of the iPad. Students can actually draw and record and talk, type, and it records it all at once. So they could actually talk to this thing, type in it, insert pictures and videos, and then save it, and so that a teacher can see it. It's also very, very elementary, so high school students could use it for that, but young children can draw and things of that nature on it. Actually get my 4-year-old to write letters on it at home. And then, of course, you've already heard me mention Edmodo. And Khan Academy is up and coming. If you've not looked at Khan Academy before, these are free online lessons. The Bill Gates Foundation is backing to provide lessons. It started out specifically for science and math, but there are a lot of lessons on there beyond that now, and that is becoming very popular in the district. So those are just kind of our most popular apps that are being used in the classroom. So if you have any questions about those 2 focus areas, I'll do my best to answer them.
Do we have any questions or comments for Dr. O'Gorman? Ms. Schwabe, you have the floor. Thank you.
Dr. O'Gorman, when you were popping up those, the curriculum stuff?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that's from Smarter Balance? Those items you were sharing?
The items that we have in-house were written in-house. What we did is we went to Smarter Balance. They've put out a number of sample test items, and what we try to do is replicate what they have put out to that specific grade level and standard.
Okay,
Yeah, so this mirrors what Smarter Balance has pushed out, but we wrote it in-house.
Okay, and so these are just samples of what the teachers are being asked to use now.
Right.
And so when you have units that are in chronological order and by grade level, is the expectation that all teachers are going through these
Together.
So, okay. So when you talk about getting feedback then on the other slide and you listed like meeting minutes and that kind of thing.
Right.
Where does the principal and like, I don't know what they're called nowadays, but like instructional coaches, I didn't have those when I was in the classroom, like the department chair or those school leaders. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I'm not going to criticize your stuff anywhere online because I want to keep my job.
Okay.
And I'm certainly not going to tell people I'm unhappy about something or I'm feeling pressured maybe.
You'd be surprised.
But so I guess my question is, where does the principal fit into that?
Okay.
And those lead teachers and those coaches, because you've talked about them supporting
Right.
them. Where do they fit into that before you and your people get?
Great question. Wonderful question. So the PLCs, we provided them with a common agenda where they talk specifically about data in their classrooms and in their grade level or in their departments. They also talk about students that need intervention, what's working, what's not for specific students. So they talk about that as a group. And then they also have a spot for making professional development requests to the school leadership team, which is kind of what you're talking about, and I'll get to that in a second. So there's a way for them to communicate directly with the school leadership team, requests for additional intervention ideas or for professional development. The school leadership team has an agenda that's very similar, and on that, it guides them to talk about what are the professional development requests or intervention requests from specific grade levels and departments. Principals, their leadership teams actually go through that and they fill it out online, and when they submit it, it actually goes to the principal supervisor and to me. And then we discuss that in my department meetings, or we will. We're just starting to get them in for the first time now. In addition to that, there are those casual conversations that they can have with their instructional coach. And the instructional coaches come back and meet in their instructional coaches meeting that are district-wide and talk about that. In addition to that, what I am going to do, and we have our first API meeting where we're going to do this next Thursday, I take the school leadership team minutes, the requests that they have specific to the units or anything else, professional development, and I will actually have the APIs talk about that as a level. So the high school APIs, that's assistant principals for instruction, the middle and the elementary, and they will prioritize what's going on in the district. Because what I've found is where something might be working very well at Berkeley Middle School, it might not be working so well at Macedonia. And I really want them to kind of talk about why is that at their school before we start delving into it. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think one of the reasons I'm asking is because I'm thinking about beginning teachers who we are struggling to hold on to now as it is. And I know there are wonderful things in place in the district, but I'm particularly concerned about beginning teachers who have such a steep learning curve, and then to have some of this taken out of their hands, and I worry about the coaches and their trust level with these beginning teachers, because the truth of the matter is they're not machines, and they're going to be learning and growing and developing their skills.
Right.
And so where does that figure in? Because that school level principal, is making those calls and helping, with that layer of it. And I think this is all wonderful. I know how much time and energy the district is spending, and I believe it's important that we really have assessments that tell us all something about how children are performing. And you've heard me say this before, but I'm just going to keep saying it. I am worried about, a future where we're teacher-proofing the classroom and where I'm allowed to fail and just really bomb on a lesson because it's not the right time, or for that group of children, it is so beyond their reach that I've got to do a lot of things that maybe the teacher next door,
Right.
isn't having to do. And
Right.
I don't want to take away from this because I know that you're trying to put in as many, places for support as possible.
Right.
But when I see meeting minutes there, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm looking, as a brand new teacher, I didn't even say anything out loud in a room until like year 4.
Right.
And even then, I was told to be quiet because I hadn't been teaching long enough. But, you know, I mean, we have teacher forum here too. I'm wondering how, you know, we've got exemplary teachers in this district. How are they really, you know, helping you see this through their lens? And because they are the practitioners, and
Right.
That's always going to be my go-to.
Right.
Ms. Moore, come back to you.
Was that a question?
Well, you're here, I mean, you're here and you're hearing this, and I will, maybe this isn't the right time, but I am curious as to how our teachers who are exemplary, who are, you know, looking at all of these, how they're managing, you know, to put it together. And you have said, you know, we don't want teachers to panic, we don't want them to be afraid, and I believe you when you say that. I know that's the case. But it is a daunting job as it is, on top of, you know, a lot of structure.
It is, and I actually talked to Teacher Forum about this today. Ms. Wallace, can I pick on you? You sure?
Yeah.
She might haunt me later about this. So Ms. Wallace was actually on one of the committees to write the curriculum. And the great thing is that teachers who are classroom teachers in our district put this curriculum together. So the feedback to the folks that are going to adjust it happens as they are teaching. So Ms. Wallace said, yeah, you know, we were going through the curriculum and we put this together, this together, this together. And she said it didn't occur to me until after I'd gotten into it for a couple of weeks how that looks in practice. So, like, she's already on a committee that's going to be working on this, so she knows what to do because she's practicing it. But I also charged Teacher Forum to go and get feedback from their teachers to make sure that teachers were providing us feedback. They can't just sit back and not say anything. We need to hear it, we need to hear it, we need to hear it. And we're going to talk about a number of other strategies I learned about just this morning about this process as well. But I didn't want to cut off from you if you wanted to say something.
Well, I know protocol is we need to be addressed, and I'm assuming you were addressing us, right? So I would love to actually comment on it if that's the case. And I think it would be helpful to the community as well. I know we have somebody else to speak. I think Dr. Roman has done a fantastic job laying a baseline for teachers. He's implemented the knowledge. So if you want to use the analogy of someone building a house, he's poured the concrete, there it is. And as teachers, I think now is an appropriate time for us to be constructively critical.
Yep.
And I think Dr. O'Gorman is listening to that constructive criticism because until things are initially implemented, you can't possibly know across the board how it's going to work. In fact, if you want a real-time example, if you go back to the rubric that you had up there, I know at the high school level, for instance, that's we're already readjusting the rubric so it meets appropriate standards. I will say this, to criticize Common Core in general, I don't think it's the appropriate time to do that. I think there's a big difference between being constructively critical. That's not just complaining, that's trying to actually help and come up with solutions for the base that Dr. O'Gorman and his staff has created for us. But to be critical on the whole because we have been influenced by national campaigns for or not for is not appropriate because it's not specific to Berkeley County students. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to address.
Go ahead, Dr. Thompson.
Dr. O'Gorman, when we spoke of the rubric, does the individual classroom teacher on the rubric for the writing assessments, does the individual classroom teacher have the authority to deviate from that recommended rubric?
Not for the pre and post assessment, but let me say this, that although this curriculum might sound all encompassing, it doesn't tell teachers what they have to do every single day. It provides guiding standards and a pace, really not a whole lot more than what you've seen. So they've got the flexibility to adjust. So they're taking this as sort of the exemplars of what needs to happen, and they can adjust their assessments in class as needed.
And I'd like to just make one comment, and then I'll yield the floor to Ms. Moore. And Dr. O'Gorman already spoke. I mean, I would just like to thank our teachers. We're talking about focus areas 1 and 2, and I believe there's 5 focus areas in the Office of Instruction, and we're only discussing 2 tonight. So folks in the audience can see the tremendous workload that our teachers have. And And we know that this is a work in progress, but our teachers are perfectionists, and so they're staying long hours to try to get it right the first time. And, and I applaud you for that, but I want you to understand, we realize it's a work in progress. And Dr. O'Gorman, this is what the principals are telling me when I go out, and I'm saying, how can we help our teachers?
Right.
They're saying over and over again, please listen to their feedback. So
Right.
I just encourage you to make sure we're opening up all the lines through all our staffs, through all our administrators, that we're getting that feedback
Right.
in evaluating that. And I agree with what you said in regards to we don't want to make knee-jerk reactions to one individual feedback, so
Right.
we got to look at it holistically.
Right.
But just make sure that we have all those avenues open to receive that feedback.
And you're right, and I beg Teacher Forum today to give us feedback, to go back and to be their cheerleaders, because they are the most valuable people in terms of making this work. It's not me, it's not Ms. Calcutt, it's not Ms. Snyder, it's not content coordinators. We need teachers to tell us what's working and what's not, because you're right, they are the ones that know and keeping us on track.
We'll come back to that thought. Ms. Moore's been waiting patiently, and we want to make sure we give her an opportunity.
My question is, are you getting away from the traditional classroom teaching?
Can you define traditional classroom teaching?
Yes, yes. When I look at the material, it come to my mind that, we have overcrowded classes and all that, and the claim we can't get any funds to lower the class size, but yet we have funds to purchase this kind of a new curriculum. I just don't get it.
Yes, ma'am. We didn't purchase this.
Oh.
We wrote this in-house.
You did what?
We wrote this, our teachers wrote this in Berkeley County.
The teachers wrote this?
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, where do we come in as board members? It seems like you have this already done, so we don't have any input in the curriculum anymore?
Yes, ma'am. It is constantly being tweaked.
Beg pardon?
It's constantly being tweaked and updated. You'll have a PowerPoint that we will send to you. Do they have a PDF version of this, or you can go through you can go through and actually click on the district portal and get access to that. We can email that link out to you so that you can go and look at it.
No, but my question, when you're in the process or when you're thinking about doing this, when you're thinking about doing this new curriculum, do we have any input? I mean, I guess that's a question to Dr. Tom.
Well, I would say this, that this
I just asked.
Adjusting the curriculum was a mandate from the State Department of Education a couple of years ago. And as part of that, we empowered our teachers to write the curriculum to meet the new standards that were imposed on, I guess, to that. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat.
Now, Ms. Moore. Ms. Moore, you asked for a unified curriculum when I was here last year, as I recall, right?
I most certainly did.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we did.
I think it's confusing. I mean, I'm confused, but okay. And I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to picture a student, in a classroom when this is presented. But it's
teachers
online though, right?
Right. Well, teachers make this. This is for teachers. It's not for students. Teachers use this to help them guide their teaching.
We'll get you some extra information, Ms. Moore. We'll get you some additional information.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I really need it.
I need it as well.
Yes.
We'll receive it together. Yes, Ms. Lee. And did you have?
As far as the pacing is concerned, once it's taught for the 4 weeks, then they have an assessment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just so I understand.
Each one varies a little bit. But
okay, but after the pacing time, then
right.
there's an assessment, correct?
Right.
If the students don't grasp the material that's been presented, how do we handle reteaching? Do we go back and extend the pacing time, or because you can't move on to the next standard before they grasp the first one?
Teachers should still build acceleration remediation into their teaching, but we have built in what's called ERI, enrichment, remediate, and intervene, which is sort of it's about a week. Yeah. It's a 1 week of, this 1 week of ERI, that's what that ERI stands for, and that's to do exactly what you're saying. So if they go through and they get that assessment and they see there are a number of kids, there's a buffer, if you will, in the pacing to allow for that.
So if they've got it, they'll move on to the next point and try to enrich those students at the time, but if they don't have it, they'll still have some time to remediate.
I'm not hearing that. I want to hear.
So the
Could you
whole
repeat
class-
that for Ms. Moore, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, during that ERI week, after the unit is completed, any student that already has the standards, they'll do activities then to enrich them and take them to the next level. But if a kid didn't get the standard, then the teacher can work with that child to get them up to the standard, to remediate.
So in short, if the student has mastered it, the teacher can push them to do a little bit harder work. If they haven't mastered it, they can step in and help them catch up to be on grade level with that standard.
So much. Excuse me.
Ms. Lee, have you finished your thoughts? Good.
Yes, I just
Okay.
have one more after
Go ahead,
that.
Ms. Lee.
Go ahead.
The Edmodo is slightly different. Edmodo, is that replacing the teacher websites, or is that something that we've never had before, nothing like that? Is that something different, or are we replacing something with that?
It is something different. It's up to the teacher as to whether or not they want to use it for their website or not.
Okay,
That would vary by school and teacher.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Lee, is that good? Ms. Moore?
Yes, my question, you're saying that teachers have the privilege to use this curriculum if they would like to, but if they don't have to.
No, ma'am, we've actually mandated this across the district.
Oh,
So they would need to. Does that conclude your question?
yes.
Dr. Etheridge, thank you.
One question, one concern. With all the apps that you showed there, I have a concern that I know teachers like to monitor what students are doing, but with all of the communication and information software that's coming in, is there any kind of way that the communication is going through a buffer through technology to monitor content or anything like that? That's
Yes.
That's an awful lot of things for a teacher to
Right.
monitor.
Any student that is on the Wi-Fi system in the county has to go through our filter. So even if they're on an app like this, going through an iPad or a Dell tablet or a desktop, it doesn't matter. As long as they're going through our Wi-Fi, it is filtered. And we actually have a list of approved apps that they can use while in the district. And so this is from that approved list of apps.
Can they get these apps through, do they get them through iPads, or are they computer accessible? Or-
Some are both. So like Khan Academy, you could access that through a computer or through an app, just like USA Today. There's an app, or you could just go through the web for it. But again, they all go through our filter.
A few months ago, you came before the board and described a plan to evaluate the effectiveness of software throughout the district.
Right.
And you were going to have a consultant come in. You
Right.
gave us a preliminary report. Is that study still ongoing, or?
It is completed. I can get you the full results of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And conclusions that you came to?
That's the summary that I gave you. And we use the proficiency-based application that I provided to you last time, using A+, Apex, things of that nature. That was part of that evaluation was actually in that application that I gave you last board meeting. Because we used the results of that to help guide our proficiency-based system.
Okay. Do you have any, did your evaluation include any student gain, pre-post, student content gain, or anything like that?
Yes, they did. They looked at student gains by school. They looked at teacher opinion, the fidelity of use with some of those things. It's quite a lengthy report. I'll have to think about the best way to get it to you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board regarding Dr. O'Gorman's presentation this evening?
I have one other question.
Ms. Moore, you've earned the right. Ask your question.
My question is, this curriculum in with the Common Core, did we have to bring this about because of the Common Core?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Moore? Did you want to?
I think Dr. Thompson was going to say something.
No, I'm ready for the next agenda item.
All right, before we move on to the next agenda item, I think it's pretty clear what the number one objective is for our board and its instruction. And I noticed one thing tonight, and I'm going to speak to you two here at the end. Isn't it great that we have a school district that puts the teachers at the front table? I'd like to hear more often from you. It's very clear you have a lot to say to us. So I'm not asking, I'm going to direct. Well, I'm not asking, I'm going to direct the superintendent to include you more in future meetings. We need to hear from our forum. You guys are on the front line, and we'd love for you to bring any information to us that you feel we need to hear to make this school district more effective on the instructional side.
On that note,
Yeah.
I do want to publicly say that we do appreciate Kevin, Priscilla, and their entire staff. They've created a good base for us to launch from.
Sure.
And now we can build from there. So the groundwork they've laid has been great. I just think sometimes he's got a target on his back. He suffers the slings and arrows of being
Well stated. Yeah.
person carrying the information.
That's well stated. Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you more often. Thank you. Dr. O'Gorman, thank you very much. All right, now moving on to agenda item number 10, other business. Dr. Thompson, we have an item for action entitled Selection of Voting Delegate and Alternate for the South Carolina School Boards Association Business Meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just need a delegate and an alternate for the December 2013 Delegate Assembly from the South Carolina School Boards Association. And at this time, I would ask for a motion for a delegate and an alternate to represent the Berkeley County School District at the Delegate Assembly.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Do I have a nomination for the delegate's position at the December conference of the South Carolina School Boards Association?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Doug Cooper to be our delegate.
Thank you. Do we have any more nominations for the position of delegate? Not hearing any, we'll move to the position of alternate. Do we have any nominations for alternate?
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Mr. Wright for alternate for the School Board Association business meeting.
Mr. Wright, will you accept that nomination?
I don't have a choice.
No, sir, you don't. Not does Mr. Cooper. He's in absentia. We're going to vote on him in his absence. All right, so I've heard any other more nominations for the alternate's position? Not hearing any, we'll call the question. I have received a nomination for South Carolina School Boards Association for the position of delegate to Mr. Doug Cooper, for the position of alternate to Mr. Frank Wright. All those in favor of these nominations, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Doug Cooper will serve as our delegate. Mr. Frank Wright will serve as our alternate. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 11, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Prior to tonight's meeting, the board chair provided me with a list of the naming committees for the Cane Hoy, Daniel Island Area High School, and the Foxbank Area School. So for informational purposes, I'd like to report the members on those committees. On the Cane Hoy, Daniel Island High School Committee, Frank Wright, Kathy Swaby, Wilhelmina Moore, and Doug Cooper. On the Foxbank Area School Committee, Dr. Etheridge, Scott Marino, Shannon Lee, and Philip Obie. And I hope that's satisfactory with everyone. Moving forward, we are pleased to announce that Berkeley County has been selected to participate in Transform South Carolina. If you read the editorial in today's paper, you know that Transform South Carolina is an initiative of New Carolina and is supported by a consortium of organizations across the state. New Carolina will be helping Goose Creek and Timberland High Schools implement their career academies by providing support, networking opportunities, and advocacy for policies that give schools the flexibility to transition to new classroom strategies. We are excited that we have 2 schools that were selected to be part of the innovative approach to education in our state. Also, we would like to remind everyone we have selected September 30th to have 2 community meetings to discuss school locations in the Clements Ferry Road area. The first meeting will be at Daniel Island School at 5:30. Then we'll move to Cane Hoy Elementary Middle for the second meeting at 7:30. And the last item, good news, and this is hot off the press, Late this afternoon, the refunding of the 2003 installment purchase revenue bond was put in to transaction, as well as the release of the reserve fund attached to this bond. The total amount outstanding was reduced by $27 million. So good news for our taxpayers, and I'd like to thank Brantley and our financial advisors for lowering our overall debt of the district. So,
Great job.
all right,
Concludes your report.
That's it.
All right, that concludes the superintendent's report. Moving on to agenda item number 12, we are now scheduled to move into executive session. Prior to accepting a motion on that matter, the purpose of tonight's executive session is for the board to hear student attendance appeals, a student expulsion appeal, personnel considerations, contractual matters, and a legal briefing. With that stated, do I have a motion and a second to move into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Thank you, Dr. Etheridge. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. We are now in executive session.